I will make it again, which is a fascinating thing, is that the Yerushalmi on Daf Chavtes, I believe it was, a couple of blot ago, Chavtes, yeah, Daf Chavtes, to Amud Aleph and Amud Beis, does not bring down the Brisa of the Bavli, which with the Shita of Rabbi Akiva. The Shita of the Yerushalmi is only Rabbi Yosef Glili's. No, only Rabbi Yosef Glili's Shita that you start on the northeast. But the Bavli brings down a Brisa. We learned this morning. I don't know if you saw it yet. The Bavli brings down a Brisa with the Shita of Rabbi Akiva started in the southeast, and the Bavli has a long discussion back and forth. So Jeff actually asked this morning, does Yerushalmi not bring down all the Brisas which the Bavli brings down? We of course know the answer is no, of course it does not, and very often Yerushalmi bring down Brisas that the Bavli does not have. But the amazing thing here is that the Shita of Rabbi Akiva, this is not, it's not some 2 cent Gevar from a Brisa. There's the Shita of Rabbi Akiva which is ignored and it's not brought down. Now I didn't actually look up the halacha, but man, now I'm actually moved. Yeah, I tricked the Rambam, but I think the Rambam paskins like this Yerushalmi. I think he paskins like the Mishnah. Over, even though Rabbi Yosef clearly is the one who says that, it's Rabbi Yosef versus Rabbi Akiva. Normally you paskin like Rabbi Akiva over Rabbi Yosef Glili, but I think probably because it's that Mishnah, or more likely because Yerushalmi ignores Rabbi Akiva's Shita. That's why he would paskin like the. That's why he would paskin like the Mishnah, which goes like Rabbi Yosef Glili over Rabbi Akiva.
Rabbi Akiva's Shita that says you go clockwise.
Yeah. That's right. He has direction going the other way around.
Then we had a big discussion about
clocks.
Oh my God! Bert took down the clock from the wall.
That was.
Where does the American flag get placed in the official government location? What, to the right or the left? Yes. It's to the flag's right. It's the higher left, but it's always to the flag's right.
Yep. The Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yosef Glili. The paskins like Rabbi Yosef Glili that you start from the northeast, not like Rabbi Akiva.
That makes sense.
What?
That makes sense because Rambam a lot of times
will paskin like Yerushalmi, right? So that's in all likelihood, I would say that's a pretty right paskin this way. That because Yerushalmi doesn't bring down the Shita of Rabbi Akiva. I'll just see if the Kesef Mishnah says something about it. Yeah. Oh, very good. Attack it. They couldn't answer Kesef Mishnah's question like this. Because the Kesef Mishnah says, see, I forgot, it's even more shver. It's even more shver. It's even more shver because Rashi says the Rabbi Yossi holds like the Shita that there was one paroches, and that's why he came out on the north side, and he started from the north side. And Rabbi Akiva holds that there were 2 paroches, right? And that's why he started on the south side because he came out on the south side. And so the Kesef Mishnah says, that there were 2 paroches, and you came out on the south side, right? So since that's the case, how can you start from the northeast side, right? It's antithetical to the whole concept of having 2 paroches. But obviously he paskined that way because the Yerushalmi holds that there were 2 paroches, and nonetheless the Yerushalmi holds that you start from the northeast. And the reason for that is because the Yerushalmi holds it's true he came out on the north side, on the south side, but then he stood in the middle to go do the hazos on the paroches. So he's at that point he's equidistant from both the north and south side. So he can go, as we mentioned, when he backs up, right? So his right will lead him to the north side, and that's why, because facing west to your right. I mean, if I was facing this way, right, to the west, so to my right is the north side, right? So that's why he would start from the northeast. So the Kesef Mishnah didn't realize that the Rambam was paskening like the Yerushalmi. Okay? Baruch Hashem. I have to make a note here.
Lieber has a whole book on the shitos of the Rambam based upon the Yerushalmi.
And we met even the Hakdama to the Yerushalmi, when the Vilna Shas mentions a few places, to mentions that the sheet of the Rambam is very often the pasuk like the Yerushalmi. Okay, I'll turn off my very far last week on Thursday. We only got the top of Lamed Aleph and Aleph, barely. But actually the Yerushalmi we're going to learn tonight is the same the Bavli we're going to learn tomorrow morning. So it really fits in very well. Tani, the differences. Tani, we learned the second word on Lamed Aleph and Rav. Tani, Moli Mayu B'Domim. The blood, after he did Zrika Saddam, I shouldn't say after, the blood has the dinim me'ilah. In other words, if one has in the Mishnah mentioned that there's me'ilah in the dam until it goes out to Nachal Kidron, right? So the shaila is that's me'ilah. The Bavli would ask whether it's me'ilah d'oraisa and me'ilah d'rabbanan. So here, in fact, it's a brisa which says it's a machlokes. Divrei Meir, the more than we've done, there's me'ilah and blood. Divrei Meir of Rabbi Shimon. The Chacham Ramim ain't me'ilah b'dim. Chacham says no me'ilah by blood. Why? Because the blood is in the soul and will atone. The blood has no value except as kapara, meaning me'ilah always implies a value to the korban, to the kachim. And there's no value to the blood except as kapara, and that's not considered to be a monetary value. Okay?
Fertilizer value.
Well, that's a machlokas, obviously. It's going to be that's going to be Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon Shita. Chachamim hold there's no milah, and if our Mishnah attributed milah to it, so it would only be there from milah d'Rabbanan, not d'oraisa. Okay, it wouldn't be actual d'oraisa milah. Says Gemara, Amar Bizila. Sorry, Chiyah b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan said, "Kol chlavi kares." Says anybody who eats blood gets kares. Interesting. What about having to pay for the blood? No, in the Chabayla kares nefesh bilvad, there's only kares, no me'ilah, because blood has no concept of value to it. Amar B'Zir hiktish dam b'nei, the nafkimina with between the two approaches is if you took a cup full of blood, and consecrated it to Bedek Habayis, right? He said that it's because blood is intended for kapara. That's why there's no me'ilah. Since there's no kapara in it, it's a typo. Everybody corrects it. Should be yesh bo me'ilah. It has me'ilah, right? Because this blood is not intended for kapara. It's a vial full of blood, right? It's not intended for kapara. He who says that the reason why by blood there's no me'ilah is because you only have kares, right? All you have is kares. In other words, somebody who eats blood is only chayav kares and doesn't have to make any payments. Well, this vial of blood, even though it's not a korban and not made for zrika sadam, you get kares if you drink it. Therefore, again, the girsa gets changed. Ein bo me'ilah, there's no me'ilah because that's the nature of the isser of blood, being something which only has kares for eating, not me'ilah for having pleasure from. Asa Rabbi Bar and Rabbi Chiyah b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, they both said hiktish dam. It should be hiktish dam lebedek habayis b'neil. The difference is whether you are makdish dam lebedek habayis, which is very simple. This is basically what Rabbi Zira was talking about, right? And when Rabbi Zira said to her that Rabbi Yochanan had given the same nafkamina he gave, chadibah, v'av Rabbi Zira chadibah, because Savra al Rabbana Yisamis, because he thought, the same nafkamina I gave when you took a vial of blood and were makdish it, and that's the difference between the reason of kares or kapara is in fact, Rabbi Yochanan, his Rebbe, had once said. Amar Le, so he said, no. What's in your hand? In other words, what are you so happy about? It's not what you thought it is. Adar Meir Rabbi Shimon Isamris. They said to him, that Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbanan, there's never Milah by blood, no matter what. And Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon said, Yesh Milah b'domim. They said there's such a nafkamina, that it depends if it was given to Bedek HaBayis or as part and parcel of a korban. But according to Chachamim, Rabbi Yochanan, your Rebbe, never, ever held that there was Milah by blood, no matter what the nature of the blood was. Okay? So it says Gemara, Rabbi Bob, Rabbi Chia, Bar Ba said, Kach Meshivim, and here again typos. Kach Meshivim, it should be Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon l'Chachamim, not Chachamim, Rabbi Shimon, but the reverse. Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon said l'Chachamim. Chachamim are the ones who said Ein Milah b'domim. So Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon argued, said to Rabbanan, hey guys, Ilu Machron, if you sell blood, let's say you have a blood shop, right? You sell blood. Nowadays, blood costs a lot of money. I don't know what a pint of blood costs, but in the get a transfusion, I'm sure it's very expensive, right? A couple $100, right? So ilu machon shemein typhus tamein. If you sell blood, does blood not, doesn't isn't there value to the sale, right? Isn't there a monetary transaction involved in it? Ma bin demand. Well, if that's the case, what's the difference between the blood? What's the difference between the value of the blood? In other words, that means blood has value. And the blood has value, it should have me'ilah. It's logical, right? This argues not what Rabbi Lezer said. Because Rabbi Lezer said, interesting saying Rabbi Lezer makes, Yesh mem sh'amru lo nanim v'lo mo'alin. That those things which they said, you cannot have hana, but there is no me'ilah. Lefichach imachar, and therefore if you sell them, eino tovi says to meim, right? There's no there's no tfisa of the money. I should have made clear before. I actually did not do this properly. It's not talking about Stam transfusion bank. Let's say you have a blood bank for transfusions, right? That, of course, if you sell it, right? If you sell the blood, the blood has money. But it's about, let's say, a Bedek HaBayis blood bank. A Bedek HaBayis had a blood bank, and they sold the blood, right? Which they got as a donation, whatever it was. Human blood, right? But it'd be the same thing. I'm just so I wouldn't use it for transfusion, whatever you use it for fertilizer, right? That's not material, okay? Just whatever blood bank. So Bedek HaBayis has a blood bank. So then the Shaila, Rabbi Lezer says it's typhus as man, meaning that it became Bedek HaBayis, and now the kedusha falls on the money, and the blood goes out l'chulin, right? So the Gemara says, no. That's what Rabbi Lezer said. That's what Rabbi Shimon said. So Rabbi Lezer argues. Rabbi Lezer says there's certain things Yesh Mehem Shamru Lo Nenim V'Lo Marlin. You can't have an but there's no me'ilah. Therefore, imachron, if you sell if Bedek HaBayis sold blood, in this case, of course, for fertilizer, so then there would not actually be a kedusha on the money that realized from the sale, because since the blood was not really kaddish in the regular Bedek HaBayis sense, therefore you're not allowed to have anah from it until it's sold. But it's not like any other hektish Bedek HaBayis. So in hektish Bedek HaBayis, if Bedek HaBayis sells something, the money which comes in from the sale now becomes the Bedek HaBayis instead. But blood doesn't become truly kaddish. So therefore, the converse of that is that when it's sold, the money which Bedek HaBayis realizes is not truly kaddish either. You see that the linkage, right? The Yesh Mehem Shamru, there are those which they said the carbonator just takes out the next three words. Shaiter Zeret Yisrael. The Yesh Mehem Shamru Malin. There is true me'ilah, right? And if it's telling which is true me'ilah, lefichach imachron tevis is the name, right? As it's which is true me'ilah, that means it's bona fide kodesh through and through. So when you sell it, the money which you get from the sale kodesh. Now, Tumdishun hamizbeach hapnimi v'amenorah, the ashes from the inner mizbeach and from the menorah, that's a classic example of lo nanim v'lo marlin. You can't have anor from them. In other words, you can't use that ashes, say, for soap. Used to make soap out of ashes, or you can't use it for putting on your wound or anything of that sort. But there's no there's no me'ilah, and therefore maybe if we sell those ashes for some purpose, then the money which was realized from the sale doesn't become kadosh, right? Then he says Rabbi Shimon, it should actually be, instead of lo nanim v'lo, there's again the Shari Torah Eretz Yisrael speaking. Rabbi Shimon, the Korbanei changed the gears to elsewhere in a different way. Rabbi Shimon, marlin bohen, there is me'ilah in them. Rabbi Shimon is consistent. Rabbi Shimon holds his me'ilah by blood. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, Rabbi Shimon holds his me'ilah by blood. Rabbi Shimon knows the top of the almond. They hold there's me'ilah by blood. So they also hold there's me'ilah by the Trumas Hadeshin, right? Because they hold it's a true commodity. Since it's a true commodity, so therefore, just like there's me'ilah by anything else, there's me'ilah by blood, and there's me'ilah by the Trumas Hadeshin as well, right? The Dishon Mizbeach, keeps saying Trumas Hadeshin, the Dishon Mizbeach happening in menorah, and therefore, if you're and that's why if they're sold over just name, they take over the monetary value. In other words, the kedusha which is attached to the Dishon Mizbeach menorah takes over the value, is then attached to the money for which was sold. So the bottom line is that the blood in our Mishnah, which would go out to Nachal Kitchen and then be sold, and there was me'ilah in that, either that's going like Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Shimon holds that there's me'ilah b'davim, or it's a me'ilah d'Rabbanan and not a true me'ilah, right? But rather it's as if there's me'ilah because Rabbanan didn't want you to use it until you paid for it. Okay?
The Gemara doesn't make the analogy between the word dam and damin.
Not here, but one could do that. Certainly, it has connotations, but not in this Gemara. All the detail, all the activities in Kippur have to be done in the proper order. If you did it out of order, lost or klub, you didn't do anything. If you did the goat blood before the bull blood, then you have to do yachsir v'yazim b'dam asor l'chai dam por. You have to redo the goat blood. Achlo gomer samatona shebifnim nishbach adam. What if before you finished all the placing of the blood inside, the blood work inside, the blood was spilled. Yavi dam acher. You bring another blood, and quite the time kama yachsor v'yazim b'tchilim b'ifnim. You have to start from scratch, from the beginning inside. What?
Starting from scratch, meaning a new.
If you still have blood left in another vessel, let's say, you bring the other vessel. If you have no blood left, you have to do a new shechita and start from scratch, wherever stage you're up to. If it was bifnim, in the Kodesh Kodashim, or the heichal, opposite parochas, or the mizbach hagozav, shekula and kapara, they're each an essential component of kapara, but kapara v'nyatzon, each one is independent. No. Let's say you did 3 on the inside, so you can bring another one and do number 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's say you did 3 on the outside. Again, the same idea. You can do 4, 5, 6, 7. Wherever you stop, that's where you continue. The order is only essential by avodas done inside in the white clothes. The avodas that are done outside in the golden clothes, which are the avodas of every day, or the Korbanei changed the girsa because in the Bavli the girsa is different. Although the Tosefta's girsa is like the Yerushalmi has in front of us, but the Bavli girsa is the avodas hanasos b'chutz b'bigdei lavan. The things which are done outside, not a bigdei zav, the order doesn't matter because that's not essential to Yom Kippur. But that which is done outside the bigdei lavan, and the Korban Eder brings down what they were, the lottery and the vidui and the pouring of shiraim on the outer mizbeach. So all those things, if you did them, but im hikti ma'aseh chavero, if you did one before the other, masha asa asui. Oh, it works, right? But that in all those things it works. So either according to the Gemara's girsa, if it was anything which is done it doesn't matter the order, or according to the Korban Eidos Gear, so even somebody's on Big Day Lovan, which means it's unique unto Yom Kippur, but since it wasn't done in the Heichal, the order is not an impediment. No, Afanasos B'chutz B'Big Day Zav, anything which is done even outside in the gold garments, here to the Korban Eidos changes the gear so again to Big Day Lovan, but the way it is in front of us, if you did anything on Yom Kippur at all, out of order, it's no good. You have to go back and do it in order. They both darshan the same pasuk. It says midam chatas haKippurim achas, from the blood of the atonement of Kippurim, one. Rabbanan said avodah shu nichnas pam achas b'shana. This is only the avodas which you go in. I'm sorry, it's all the avodas with which you go in once a year. Meaning all the avodas which are occurring in Yom Kippur, which are all part and parcel of the going into the Kodesh Kodashim, meaning at the time when you go into Kodesh Kodashim, you do all these avodas, they all must be in order, which includes all the ones, even the ones that are down outside. Rabbi Yehuda says no. When it says achas b'shana, means only the avodas which are done in the place where you can only go in once a year. So he holds the only order which is ma'akev is the order not even in the Kodesh, only in the Kodesh Kodashim, because that's the only place we only go once a year. Those are the avodas which should be done in order. The other ones we don't care. Okay, next Gemara, Rabbi Yoshua b'shem Rabbi Pes. Rabbi Pes is Rabbi Ephes, was his full name in the Bavli, and he was very humble, obviously. What? He was he didn't live very long after Rebbe's demise, but he took over as Rosh Hashiva immediately after Rebbe's Ptira, and before obviously Rabbi Yochanan came on this. Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yosha took over. So Rabbi Yosha and said B'Shem Rabbi Pes b'matanos. Now here the Gillian Ephraim changes the gears like crazy, and it makes sense when he does. He says b'matanos haparoches. Okay, I'm switching everything. Matanos haparoches. That's where the order is impediment. Avo b'matanos habadim, but the matana is given on the badim, right? That I'm sorry, matanas matanas haparochas and matanas habadim por ma'akevis hasoyer. Okay, so every word here is changed, right? It was to double reversal. Okay, right? Pes said matanas haparochas and matanas habadim. So what he's saying is like this. An interesting thing according to Gillian Ephraim. He's saying that it says in our Mishnah, if you did the Sawyer before the par, so then do the Sawyer afterwards again. So he says that's true about the matanas you do on the parochas, in the heichal. But on the badim, inside, if you did first the Sawyer, and only then the par, so that Sawyer is rendered unfit altogether, you must shecht another Sawyer. Even if you have blood left over. You asked me in the Mishnah. Even if you have blood left over. Why is that? So Rabbi Elazar said, the Gillian takes out the Vav. Actually, this is not a why. This is a continuation of the statement. Rabbi Elazar, Nosan, midam hapor al bein habadim, v'al bein haparoches. A byproduct of the statement is we see if you put the blood between the poles of the aron and bein paroches, and then you only afterwards and then you shechted the soyer done outside. In other words, you're supposed to shecht it prior to that, between the bottom and the paroches. But let's say you waited and we shechted it after the parochas, and then went and did the sawyer's blood work, both bein a body and bein a parochas. Kosher, it's going to be kosher, and it's not a hefsek. Why is that? Because it's in line with what we just saw, that sometimes you even have to shech the sawyer afterwards. If you did the sawyer's blood work prior to the par's blood work then you have to shech the new soyer, right? So we see this soyer is not a hefsek, and he continues along those lines. So Rabbi Eliezer said, that's pashut. You didn't have to tell me that. Ilu nishbach midam haspora midam hasoyer amunach bekos, where let's say the blood which you had from the goat, from the bull and from the goat, which are already in cups, spilled out, and there's none left. Shemeinu mivi paracha v'kosher. So the halach is, then you slaughter another bull, right? Or slaughter another goat, whatever spilled out. Ma bin shochan at shlonosa, ma bin shochan mishanosa. So there's no difference if you're slaughtering the goat or bull before you did some matanos or after you did the matanos. It's pashut that you can slaughter in the middle. It's not considered to be hefsek, because we see that where you have to, you're allowed to do that. Ilu amar v'yitain, we're to say that you do have to start from scratch, because it really is a hefsek to slaughter a new goat. That would be a chiddush. In other words, to be makel is no big chiddush in this case, because we know that if you lose blood, you shecht another animal for the blood you lost, even in the middle of the process. It would have been a much bigger chiddush had you come up with a chumrah here, because your chumrah would have been to tell us that that when you slaughter the goat, it's a hefsek, and you have to start over and do the matanos of the par lifnai v'lifnim, which you already did over again. That would have been a chiddush. That's a tremendous chiddush. Obviously, what you said is not a chiddush. Okay, period. Rabbanan Amei, getting back to our mission, Rabbanan Amei, Sholosh L'koishim, Sholosh Psul. Rabbanan said, Rabbanan, there are three avodas, which are machshir the carbon, and therefore three avodas which can make a pigul if you have the wrong thought in the Kor Yom Kippur, which are, there's 7 zvikos inside, the 7 zvikos outside, and the 4 placements, and 7 hazos on the Mizbach HaKtoris. So there's Lifnai V'Lifnim, and the Mizbach HaKtoris. Those are 3, and each one, even though it has multiple hazos, is 1 unit. That's why Rabbanan hold, if you got lost the blood somehow in the middle of a series of any one of these units, you go back to the beginning of the entire unit, right? So that's Rabbanan Meshol Shekosher Shepsul. Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon Omrin, they would say Arboim V'Shol Shekosher, Arboim V'Shol Shepsul. They're 43 and 43. I don't know if I can reconstruct this. They're 14 Kodesh Kodashim. There are another 14 in the Kodesh, right? That's 28. And then there are another 4 and 7 on the Ktores, on the Mizbach HaKtores. That's how many? 39, right? 39, so I'm missing 4. What are the other 4? This is stupid. It was Achas Lamal Sheva Lamata, so it was 8 and 8. It wasn't 14, it was 16. 16 and 16 and 11, and that's 43. Okay. So that's 43. And therefore, if you're counting not in each unit independently, but you're counting towards that 43. So wherever you stop, that's where you pick up and continue, even if you're in the middle of a series of 7. Okay? And along these lines, each unit of 7 is a kapor in of itself. Each and every zrika in of itself is its separate unit. Rabbi Shimon said, Tamar Eliezer, Rabbi Shimon, logical Rabbi Shimon said, who says that each zrika is an independent unit. You start from being mechap in the kodesh. I feel even if there's only one sprinkling. Es hakod singular. So even one matana, it counts. Or matana kalei, that's considered to be sufficient. It's finished. That one is done. Amar Eliezer, period. Amar Eliezer said, Nosa mixas matanas nishbach adam. If you did something matanas and the blood spilled out, maybe achem tachteim, you bring, of course, others instead of them. Everybody agrees with that. Now, but this is the new question. Elu ve'il nishbachim b'mitzvasam. is, let's say there's still a little bit of the first blood left. Not enough to actually do the rest of the Zrikos, but there's a little bit left. So he says, then it still has a din of Shiraim, and he put it on the Yisod of the Mizbeach. So even though you switch now to the blood of a new carbon, you shech the new carbon and switch this blood, but the first blood is still valid Shiraim, and it goes on the Yisod, right? That's Pashut, right? Lachin Tzricha. However, this is our question. Kshenikra Aleim L'Shem Psul. What about the first blood is okay, but most of it's spilled out. You only have a little bit left. Now you shechted another carbon, but the second carbon you shechted is a pigul. Don't ask me why he made a pigul. Obviously he's an idiot Kohen or Russian Kohen, but even now it became possible. So now what's the status of the first Shiraim? Do they lose their status because they're not attached to a kosher carbon, right? Because there's no continuity between them and the rest of the Zrikas. Or do they say they still return their status? Amar Rabbi Yosef said, "V'yos." Is this a good question? I think it's Bikmio. I'm not sure. Let's see. V'yos is a good question. Ilu nasa miktas matanos. Let's say you gave part of matanos. V'nishba chadam, and the blood got spilled. Shemayna maybe achem tachteim. Don't you bring other ones instead of them? Umolim b'rishayim, but they're still meal on the first ones. They're still considered to be valid shiraim. So what's the question? Rabbi Chagai, boy, kumer Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Chagai said instead of Rabbi Yossi, no, it's not so simple. Ad kedun, that's true in the case which we described previously. When you shechted the first ones, okay, and then most of that blood spill you have a little bit left. The second one is puzzle. I got that. Then you can still, the first ones are considered to be valid shiraim. You can put them on the yisod. However, shachadis are ishoinim l'shem psul. What about you shechted the first ones l'shem psul? And the second, in other words, the first one became puzzle. Okay, this is a separate question. All right, that's what I got wrong. Rabbi Chagai Boykor Rabbi Yossi is a separate question. Okay, Rabbi Yossi said, Rabbi Yossi just made a statement. He said the question is not a good question, or maybe it is a good question, but it's simple to give an answer to the previous question, which is if the first blood was kosher and it has shiraim, even if the second blood is puzzle, it doesn't matter. The first blood retains its status as shiraim, it gets on the yisod. Now, Rabbi Chagai Boykor Rabbi Yossi, a different question. He said like this. There's a separate question. If you shechted the first, you did the first carbon kosher, and the second carbon puzzle. So the first carbon, right, retains its shem kashrus, like we just learned, and it's shirayin go to the yisod. Fine. What about the other way? The first one you shechted it was puzzle, and you have to do the second one l'shem kosher. Now, in this case, what's the status of the zrikos I did with? Well, I'm not sure I understand this question. I'm looking at Bnei Moshe.
Where the first one is puzzle, so therefore, by doing the second one, that's the only one that's kosher. Therefore, you'll be mocked in the second.
No, that's not what the question is. The question is whether the psul of the second one is mitzdarif. Somehow, since the question is like this, though, I don't know if I can articulate it properly when we get to the Gemara and Tzad. I can articulate it outside very well. Which is, the question is when part of the azos came from a kosher animal. Not kosher, from an animal, carbon shech the kedin. And part of an animal which was a pigul or a puzzle. So do I say that the puzzle, the psul of one, affects the kashrus of the other, and it's rendered invalid, even though it itself was shechted b'kashrus? So that's the worst question is, okay? His question is, Akadusha Shogad is the Yerushalmi Shem Kosher Vashnim Shem Psul. It's pashut that the first ones retain, the first blood remains kosher, and each shrine goes to Yisod. Shogad is Yerushalmi Shem Psul, but the Shem Shem Kosher. But what if you started that avoda? I think this is I can get it now. What if you started that avoda with blood from a carbon which was proved to be possible? The Kohen ran up to you and said, "Guys, I have to admit I did a pigul." So you have to stop dead in its tracks, right? Now you're starting your mashim with the second one. It was the same kosher. But you pick up in the middle. So you did already 2 units of blood work, the lifnai, lifnim, and the paroches, and now you want to pick up with the ketores. So can I do that? Right? Does it work at least that it's considered to be a kosher? I mean, of course, it's not going to work. This is the problem here. It's not going to work. The blood work you did with the first carbon is obviously no good.
It was never kosher.
Right, it was obviously not good, the blood work you did with the first carbon. But at least can the blood of the second carbon be considered shirayim? Right? You understand what I'm trying to say? Obviously, you muffed up that avodah badly now. So you really messed up. You might have to start from scratch the whole thing. But at least the stuff which you did bekashrus from the second carbon, say on the Mizbeach HaPnimi, does it generate shirayim that I can then throw on the Mizbeach HaChitzon?
Shrine for the first carbon?
No, for the second one.
Maybe the shrine was about whether the shrine for the first carbon.
No, first one was definitely possible. It was a pigul.
But what do you do with the blood?
You have to throw it out. Throw it in the canal.
But not on the Yisod?
Not in Yisod, no, because it's a pigul. You wouldn't put pigul blood there. But the question is, the second carbon, does it have any? Can I salvage the shirayim in any way, shape, or form? I think that's the Gemara's question. So Rabbi Yezid says no. Motzinu pasul motzimidei pigul. You remember, you can only make a pigul if the rest of the avodas of the carbon are done bekashrus. If one avodah is done b'sul, that's it can become pigul. So certainly, if pasul can make something ois pigul, pasul motzimiyat kosher, then the pasul takes something out of its kashrus. So meaning that the shchita on the first one was done for the improper reason, even though the shchita on the second one was done for the proper reason, and doesn't help because this avoda in and of itself became pasul, and the whole thing becomes no good as a result. Okay, that's
even the second.
Yeah. Because it's contingent. You can't get to the Mizbeach HaChitzah. You can't get to the Mizbeach unless you first did Lifnai v'Lifnim and the Paroches. And that was built on Pigul or Pasul, whatever was wrong with the first one. So that Pasul of the first one undermines the credibility of the second one. It can't undermine retroactively. In other words, retroactively. In other words, if the first one was kosher, and then you shechted another one, and the second one was pasul, so that one's pasul, but the first blood, whatever's left from the first blood, you can put on the Yisod. But vice versa, if the first one was pasul, and you erroneously picked up from where you left off with the second one, that second one is built on the first one, which is pasul, it's definitely pasul, and that blood can't be thrown on the
Isn't it built on the second one built on the first one because that there has to be a certain seder to be avoda, and by making something the first one pasul, in effect, we're doing the second one.
Yeah, you're right. You were right before. I misunderstood you. When you said hiktim, I thought you meant like being maktim the soyer to the par. What you really meant is be maktim one unit of avodas to the other. You are correct. Yes, I misunderstood what you were saying. Yes, you stand vindicated. Okay, stand corrected. Says Hajjal Ferkot next Mishnah. Shnei Sir Yom Kippurim, the 2 good goats for Yom Kippur, LaHashem, LaZozo, mitzvahs and the mitzvahs should shovim b'mara v'koima v'domim. They should be equivalent in the way they look, their height, their value. Kachas and kachas, and you have to buy them simultaneously. But if you didn't, but you have it, it's okay. But one today and another tomorrow, also it's kosher, but you have it. Let's go call this all sorts of tzoros. One of them dropped dead. Had a heart attack from fright, right? Before you did the goyro. So I'm sorry, if it's before he did the goyro, so There's too many words here. If one of them died before the goyro, just take another one and do the goyro. But if it's after the lottery that it died, you got to bring another two. You have to do a second lottery. And then you should say, if the one you should say, if the one shall shame died, of a girl, now the second one last shame, Yiskaytachtov will be instead of it. This is not a tonight. You know which one died, because it died after the agrola, right? But you say, if the one which died was shall shame, so you should take this second one instead. One which died was Azazel, Zeshalav, a love girl, Azazel, then one which goes Azazel is Kaytachtov, it's taken instead. But Shani Yirat Sheistai, the second one grazes until it gets a mum, Bimacher, and then it's sold, Yibul Dava Nadava, and its money goes to for Nadava. Why Shein Chatos Sibur Mesa? Because even though it's a Chatos, and Chatos of an individual, superfluous Chatos must be starved to death. This is not the Chatos of an individual, it's Chatos of a Tzibur, doesn't have to die. But he says no, even a Chatos of a Tzibur dies. Furthermore, Rabbi said, Nishbach Adam, what if the blood got spilled? Of the soil Hashem, after you slaughtered it, Yomus HaMishtalech. Then you can't use that soil Azazel, because it was contingent on the kashrus of its twin, and the twin was not kosher. Meis HaMishtalech, what if the one which was to be sent out got died before he did its mitzvah? Then vice versa, Yishafech Adam, then the blood of the soil Hashem has to be spilled out. In other words, the making of the two is linked together. Seirim, it says Seirim goats. So miut Seirim Shnaim. We know the minimum amount of goats is 2. You can't Loman Emar Shnei, so why does it say 2? So that word 2 teaches us Sheyu Shavim, that they should be equivalent. It says Kavasim, it says by the Talmud or by other karbanos where there's their lambs. It says Kavasim. Miut Kavasim Shnaim. The number Kavasim is 2. You can't Loman Emar Shnei Kavasim. Why does it say 2? Shnei Kavasim. Sheyu Shnei Shavim, that they should be equivalent. Tziporim, for a mitzora, miut tziporim shtayim. It's the minimum amount of birds is 2. In came Loman Emar Shtei, so why did it say 2? Shushava said they should be equivalent. Chatzotzos, trumpets, miut chatzotzos shnayim. Minimum amount of trumpets is 2. So in Cain, if that's the case, Loman Emar Shtei, why does it say 2? Shushava says, and Oshim, the two people who have the din Torah should stand b'lifnei Hashem, before God. In other words, before the shofet. If that's, I think it says Lifnei Elohim there, actually, not Lifnei Hashem. So let's say, what are you going to say there? What choice are you going to make? That's going to say Anoshim, Mi Anoshim Shtayim. It means there are 2 litigants. So what does it say 2? Shushavin. So what does Shnei mean? That there should be equivalent? Meaning, you have to regard them equally? No, they're not. They're not tested. They're not witnesses. They're litigants, right? So obviously, that could only mean that you have to regard them as equals. But we already know that. Folks, even doesn't say lo sate mishpat ger yosam. Do not incline in the judgment of a foreigner, a convert, or a orphan. And Almon it says there too. Ba'arei matzinu ger don mishainu ger, right? Obviously, it's talking about a ger with making a judgment, coming to judgment with somebody who's not a ger, right? Or yosam danim mishainu yosam, or an orphan coming to somebody who's not an orphan. Amona danim mishainu amona, a widow coming to somebody who's not a widow. And it says, treat them equally, right? Don't make any inclinations in that case, right? So already know treat the 2 litigants equally. So matam aloma shnei. So what does the shnei by shnei anoshim teach us here? So elam ifnaya. It's superfluous. And it's l'hakish l'gzeir shava. It's a make gzeir shava. Very interesting gzeir shava. Nemar kan shnei. It says here 2. V'nemar lahalon shnei. It says 2 by edim. Apishnayim edim yakum davar, right? So ma shnei shnemar lahalon. Just like the shnei which is stated. This is Yerushalmi, so Lahalon means here. The Yushnei, which it says here, is Anoshim, V'lo Noshim. Even though women can be litigants too, but it says Shnei Anoshim, right? So we're saying the word Sheni is superfluous, and it's conjunction with the word Anoshim. So it's just men and not women, V'lo Ktarim, nor children, because Anoshim means adults. So what's critical is that we're learning that the two which it says by Eidim are Noshim v'lo Noshim. This is what teaches us that Eidim can only be men, not women, v'lo Ktanim, nor children. So this Shnei Noshim, which is stated by litigants and is superfluous, actually teaches me that the Shnei that Eidim have to be Shnei Noshim, that have to be two adult males. Okay? Me'aton, from this we derive, Ein a woman cannot be a judge as well, because only a person who can testify can be a judge. Rabbi Yosef said, Nemar kan al pi shnayim eidim, it says two witnesses, v'nemar lahalon, they learned from a different source, Nemar lahalon, it says, shnei, it says two, v'yishoru shnei enoshim machna, it says the two people, when Moshe Rabbeinu chose the 70 elders, he wrote, right, elder May that stayed in the camp, right, and the Mash Nation alone, just like Elder Maida were men, Noshim lo Ktanim, not women nor children, Avshenish Nemar Khan by the Eidim, Anoshim lo Ktanim, right, those men, not women, not children. He came Loman Emar Vomdushnei Noshim Mai, so if he learned that from there, so what does he do with the two men which it says by litigants? So it means not only should you not, you should treat them as equals, right? Rather, it also means you shouldn't give one the advantage over the other. One should not stand, the other sit. One should not be silent. The other speak. One speak everything he wants. The other one he say be brief. The dying should not be give nice countenance to one. Umeiz panav and be bunim and be stern. Connected the echad, the opposite of the other. Mami lazel allow one to stand. Cause one to stand, emotions and cause one to sit. Mishum Rabbi Shmuel Amru, and there Shmuel said a fascinating thing. Omer lo, they say to a litigant shows up in court in a Savo row suit, he's wearing a $1,000 suit. So we tell him, levosh kshem shulovesh, either come in the same $150 suit as your friend is coming, or habisho kshem shato levush, or go buy him a fancy suit. So they actually have to come dressed in a similar fashion to base it.
$800 silk.
The shuv extra, right? Then you have to give the other one silk extra too. All right, Shamati. Shimrat Sadayin Moshe Vishneim. I heard that if the Dayan wants to allow both litigants to sit, Moshe is allowed to do so. Veza also, what's the problem? Just have one standing, one sitting. That's the problem. One talking, the other one, etc. etc. Rabbi Shavuna said, however, Jewish law requires the witnesses to stand when they testify. Rabbi Yirmiyah said, so too the people who are being judged, they must stand when they are receiving testimony against them. In other words, when their testimony being directly against them, they too must stand. Okay? Period. Getting back to our Mishnah. Shavim b'damim. Cute thing. Shavim b'damim. Let's say they both cost the same price. But it only costs the same price because one deal is ripping you off. Right? They're not equivalent in their true value. Right? Or vice versa. In a circuit mitzvos, and that's not proper. Vice versa, shavim b'shevach domim, if they're equal in value, even though you're not paying the same price for both of them, then it's circuit mitzvos. That's okay. In other words, you don't actually have to pay the same money. You have to get the same value. Okay? Interesting question the more asked. One is, let's say, one set of goats is meshubach begufo. It's fatter. The other meshubach marav, it's more handsome. Mikodem. Right? Because a korban, you can say fatness counts, so it's hidur mitzvah. You could say that appearance counts, which is better. So Rabbi Yirmiyah Savar Meir brought a fascinating raya. It's an amazing raya. So Nishmini min Adol, let's hear from here. Aviv Katzer. This is about Minchas Omer. Okay? So Minchas Omer is supposed to be cut, l'shem the Omer itself, right? However, what happens if you have outstanding grain, but it's already cut? Aviv means spring, fresh grain. It's already cut. And the Yavish Liksor, the stuff which you're going to harvest, is already dried out. So the hitter seems to be the stuff which is already cut, but then he won't fulfill the mitzvah of Ketzira. So Aviv cuts or koidem. You better take the stuff which is already already cut because it's fresh, because it's fresh, even though it's a bigger mitzvah to actually cut. Hadamras teaches us meshubach begufo, meshubach memarav. So it teaches us that if you have that which is more praiseworthy in its body, meaning here the aviv, which is the fresh grain, on the other hand, meshubach marav, which is more praiseworthy in its appearance. And here, of course, it's not appearance, but rather it's more praiseworthy that you can do the mitzvah of harvesting the Omer Express. Nevertheless, we pay attention b'shubach b'gufo kodem. The hitter mitzvah is not something which has to do with the process, but has to do with the substance. And the substance here is better to take something which is fresh. And here, in our Gemara would follow, it would be better to take the fatter korban as opposed to korban which is more splendid looking. Okay, because that's actually the meat of the korban is the substance of it, not the way it looks. Because once it's dead and flayed and on the mizbeach, it don't look so pretty anyway, right? So therefore, it's better to go after the fat.
What is it talking about? It's not the seir, it's seir.
Yeah, one of them is going to go to Hashem.
So it's not our choice to decide which one is for the.
But one of the two. So we tell you we have a choice of two seir which are fatter, or two seir which are more handsome.
Two pairs.
Two pairs, right? That's what I meant to say. Okay? Okay, Kini Masnisa. This is the way to read our Mishnah. Now this is talking about where one died, right? So after the Agrola. So you do another Geiro, right? You bring another two and do Agrola. The Yomi you say Zesholav Agrola, Shem is Chai Tachtav, right? Ezemem Karev Tchila. Now, the question is, however, okay, fine. You have, let's say the one Lazazel died, right? So now you have two Lashems, right? So which one do you take? So now you have two Hashems. Now, it's funny the Gemara doesn't give an answer. So Rav Amar Sheni Shabein Zug Sheni from the second group. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Shein Shabzug Rishon Shabein Zug Rishon from the first group. Amar is your time, Rabbi Yochanan. What's the logic, Rabbi Yochanan? Vaso Chatos. The it says Vaso Chatos. Make it a chatos, right? Meaning it, the first one, Parishon, the first one you got. Rabbi Law, that's Rabbi Zir. Rabbi Law said, time Rabbi Yochanan, logic Rabbi Yochanan, so chatos, kavo bitliya, it's more than that. It fixed it when it was chosen, or when it was the tliya, when the goro was told it, shelo yidochem. Now he adds in a very interesting point, which is, normally, Rabbi Yochanan holds that Baalei Chaim are nidchim, meaning an animal which could have been a korban, for some reason was pushed off, such as it got lost or something like that. So then in that case, it's nidche and it becomes possible. Its kedusha becomes damaged and it becomes possible, right? Here, Rabbi Yob Law says this pasuk so chatos defies that normal logic. It tells you that even though here it should be nidche, because its partner died, so for it was temporarily unsuitable. No, it doesn't lose its suitability, and you dafka take the first one. Okay, that's v'asya kidam Rabbi Yoina, and that's going like Rabbi Yoina said. Rabbi Zir vaso chatos kavo b'tliya. It said it as the chatos at the time when he made the goyro, she's davig lo chaver, in order that another one should come with it. I'm thinking maybe bitliya actually is better translated not at the goro, but at kavo. It said it to wait. Kliya means sometimes to be tolev omed. It said it to wait that even if it loses its partner, it should have another partner come along, and it's not nidche by virtue of its partner dying.
You're actually losing two pairs, because the second pair you've made the goro, and that one is not going for the korban.
Well, you lose either way.
Yeah, but But you've already lost one pair, because the one is sheep died.
No, you didn't lose one pair. You lost the one korban. According to Rabbi Yochanan, you didn't lose that whole pair. You have at the end of the process, you'll have three animals, right? Two of which will be korbanos.
Right. But isn't there this bonding, this affinity between?
No, that's Rabbi Yochanan's chiddush. That's not that way. That's the chiddush Rabbi Yochanan. Rav holds there's the bonding, and therefore the first one, once one of these set dies, the other one's lost. Rabbi Yochanan holds not bonded permanently. I mean, it's normally it would be, but here because it says vasohu chatos, it means that the remaining animal from the first set remains intact, and it's in the second set's animals that one of them gets lost in the shuffle. Okay, so that's actually what happens according to Rabbi Yochanan. Okay, v'asakid like what Rabbi Yochanan says. Al did Rabbi Yochanan meis sheni shebein zug sheni. Right. So what happens now according to Rabbi Yochanan? If the second one in the second set dies, okay, in other words, you had the Soyer Lashem and Soyer Lazazel, and one of them died, and now you did a second set, right? And the second set, one of them dies now as well, right? So what's the status now in this case?
Well, did in each set did the other sheep die?
Yes.
But one had to be the Zazel.
Right. Obviously, it was the other one who died. But the Shia is the Chia. The Shia is what happens if Rabbi Yochanan holds, who normally holds Baal Chaim Nitchim, they get pushed off. What happens in this case? In other words, the first one we said, it says Vaso Chatos, it avoids being Nitche. But this one, maybe the second one can't get Nitche because when its partner dies, that undermines it. Even though it can still affiliate it with the first. Right, you would say it could affiliate with the first group, right? No, but that might be only a one-way street. Maybe the first one is a free agent, but the second one is not a free agent. It must be bonded in essence to two korbanos. It's bonded to its partner and to the original korban. And if the second one, even in its sets, died, that's it. You have to throw it out. That's the worst question. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Oh no, it's the other way. I'm sorry. He's not asking the second animal. He's saying on the first animal. In other words, you had a Soyer Lashem, Soyer Lazazel, right? Soyer Lazazel dies. You take a second group, Soyer Lashem, Soyer Lazazel, right? Right. Now, the Soyer Lazazel the Soyer Lazazel lives, right? The Soyer Lashem dies. Yeah. But now, the question is, maybe the Soyer Lashem of the first group has finally lost its status. In other words, maybe it doesn't carry over a second time. That's what I think his question is. The first Soyer Lashem, the first Soyer Lazazel died. Now the Soyer Lashem dies, but now the question is whether. No, it's got to be that the Soyer Lazazel dies again. That has to be. The Soyer Lazazel dies, you take another one, and then the second Soyer Lazazel dies as well. Does it carry over to a third set? That must be his question. Does it carry over a third set? I think that's what his question is. Let's see if that works. Mei Sheish ben Zug Sheni, Sheish ben Zug Rishon, the remaining one surviving after the first Mao Shitche is a Nidche. So I'm Rabbi Asa Rabbi Bon Rabbi Chiv Rabbi Yochanan said Mei Sheni shebein Zug Sheni. If the second one from the second set dies, Sheni shebein Zug Rishon, the remaining one from the first set, Kvar Nidche, then it's pushed off. Then for sure you can't use it anymore. And Kol Shkein Mechalfa Shita Say the Rav, and it's certainly true about Rav. Rav said, anyway, you use the second set, right? Rav said use the animals, use the...
It's bonding, so you have to go in the second.
Yeah, Rav says use the second set, so here you certainly are going to lose. The first one's lost anyway, right? For sure it's lost, right? It's nothing to talk about. You have to get a third set altogether, right? So if according to Rabbi Yochanan you have to get a third set, certainly according to Rav you also have to get a third set. That's clear. Okay. Says more. May sheni shebezu mechaber that's right. May sheni shebezu zug rishon. Now there's a third case. May sheni bezug rishon. What if you have the first animal died in this first set, right? And then he took two more. And now the second animal died in the first set, right? So now, right, you get the idea? Now both animals from the first set are dead, right? But what about the second set? Can you use the second set, which is still alive? Right, because you have a second set which is intact, right? You can't use it either. Sheni shebezug sheni kfar nitcha. Because it's already, the first set, the second set was pegged to the first set, right? And so, you understand what I was saying?
According to Rabbi Yochanan.
According to Rabbi Yochanan. Only according to Rabbi Yochanan, right. Only according to Rabbi Yochanan. Right, because Rav holds it doesn't get pegged, right. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you have the first set, and one of those died, so and then he brought a second set, so the first set pegs to the second set. Now, even though when the second animal, the first set dies, even though the second set is still intact in front of you can't use it because the pegging crossed over, and therefore you lost it. Very good. Okay. Now, it says, this is an easy Gemara. We had this already once before. Hilo Shleisha, right? Now, you did a stupid thing. This is a klutz going Gemara. Hilo Shleisha, you did three. You said it's three karbonos, three sets. There's three soil Hashems, and of course 3 soil Azazos. One to do the inside. The other to do on the parochas. One to do on the outer mizbeach, on the inner mizbeach. Now, normally you shouldn't do this, right? Because you can do it all from one soil Hashem, right? But you decide to do 3. You want to do 3. Okay, fine. The shaila is Eizemer Mishtalech, but now you have 3 soil azazos. You can only send 1 away. Which one do you send away? So we see l'chaper olav. It says l'chaper olav. Eshu mechaper bo, the one with which you do kapara, chaver Mishtalech, the other one sent. Eshu mechaper bo, if you didn't do kapara with it, ain't chaver Mishtalech, you don't send its friend out. Rabbi Hillel l'chaper olav, to complete the kapara upon it. Eshu gomer bo, it's called kapara chaver Mishtalech. Once you complete the kapara, its friend is sent out. Eshu gomer bo kapara, when you don't complete the kapara, ain't chaver Mishtalech, its friend is not sent out. Now, daited Rabbi Zir, according to Zir, shloshta mishtachim. Not all 3, but any one of the 3. Because each one corresponded to some level of kapara, right? Because each soil Hashem did some level of kapara, so its partner, the soil Azazel, can be the soil Azazel. However, daited Rabbi Hillel says it's the one which completes the kapara, the only one you can send out is the last one. Not either one of the first 2. Okay? Says more first, just go to the Mishnah. It says, it does die. The Kasha Rabbi Yula, so the Kasha Rabbi Yula is the Yesh Odam Magri Lemisa. In other words, when you're doing the Agrola, the second Agrola, you're destining one to death. Right? Right? The destiny was Yesh Odam Magri Lemisa Mishor Rishona. In other words, as the Korban points out, there's a according to Rabbi Yochanan. Right? According to Rabbi Yochanan, when you do the Agrola, you know that one of the animals is going to die.
Well, so's the other one too.
But it's not La Hashem and La Azazel. So you're doing a second lottery, right? According to Rav, so both of these animals will survive.
Yes.
The first one dies, right? But according to Rabbi Yochanan, one of these 2 animals is going to die. So it's really a lie, right? It's not La Hashem and La Azazel. It's either La Misa La Azazel or La Hashem or La Misa, but it's not the, right? So Rabbi Avuna said, no. Well, we never find such a thing. Ad Rabbi Lezer, and we see Rabbi Lezer says such a thing. Rabbi Lezer Maria Musu. This is a case where the Korban brings out in Masechta Tmura. It says that if you have a Tmura of an Asham, the Asham dies. So there we see a case where something is made hektish and it dies. So here too, it's made hektish and it dies. We find such things Tumuras Chatos is the same thing. I'm not sure we didn't bring down Tumuras Chatos itself, but that's the Gemara will bring it down in a minute. All right, Amana Hein Dat Makshilo ad Rabbi Yehuda. If instead of asking Rabbi Yehuda, Kashiyasa the Masniso, I ask on the following mission, Tina Taman, the same idea as Rabbi Lezer. A Vlad Chatos is the word missing. It should be Vlad Chatos Tmuras Chatos. The Chatos Shemesu Baalea Yamusu. They all die, right? V'yeshoda Meimer Lemisa Mishor Rishoino. How could that be? When you're making a Tmura and you're calling it, let this be a Tmura of a Chatos, and all that happens is that it dies? What kind of a Kedusha is that to make a Kaddish to die? But the answer is, Eina Chanami. There is such a thing. You tried to make a Kaddish, you didn't succeed fully, or maybe it did succeed, but it has to die anyway. So too, Rabbi Yehuda holds the same thing here, according to Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah, you make it hektish, but since it's a redundancy, therefore it goes to die.
It's not totally analogous here because Tamur is something that.
Because Tamur is a bad thing, right? This is a thing which is required to. Right. It's not a 100% good analogy, but that I'm not responsible for already.
But the answer to that is you have to make the goro. You still have to choose one of those sheep in the second group. You can't,
right, according to Rabbi Yochanan, there's no choice, right?
You have no choice.
There ain't breira. That's the answer, right?